Guys, I am back, and today we're going to talk about 28 Years Later. I went and saw this in the theaters, and it was really good. I really liked this one. I think that it was a perfect combination of styles from the first 28 Days Later to the second 28 Weeks Later. Because the first one is definitely more raw and artsy, and then the second one is more, this is a Hollywood action film. And this new one really feels like there's Hollywood cameras, Hollywood equipment and shots and crew, but there's also that artistic rawness to it. So I did really like that. Alex Garland was one of the producers on it, I believe also a writer, and he's quite known for making very artsy films, so I wasn't surprised when I watched it and I was like, oh yeah, there's definitely an artsy tone to it. I will say one of my critiques of the film is some of the editing wasn't my favorite. I think it was distinctive in its style, but not a big fan of it. For example, there's fight scenes between Spike, the main boy, and Samson, the alpha character, and then there's a couple different other fighting scenes throughout the film where they do these freeze frames during the action, and I really did not like that. I think it was a stylistic choice and I can have some appreciation for that, but also for me it kind of drew me out of it a bit. It just felt like I was very honed in on watching the action happening, and then every time there was a freeze frame I'm just like, ugh, okay. Like, it kind of drew out some of the adrenaline rush for me, so I didn't love that. I'm not really sure what the idea behind that was. I think honestly it was just kind of a creative choice to make the film appear a little more unique, which, you know, it's cool they did something different. I just don't think it worked very well, at least in my opinion. But that was my main critique of the film. My final critique before I get into the positives and kind of go more into the film, I think grief was a very heavy theme in this, which I'm not, of course, opposed to. I think considering the kind of rawness of the first movie, I think they kind of leaned into that, of really diving into the emotional side of it. However, I kind of wish that we got more of the infected in the film and more action, more kill scenes, instead of so much focus on the relationship between the child and his mother, the child and his father, and then him and the doctor. I just think I liked their storyline, but it didn't fit great, I think, in my personal opinion, in a horror movie, where I felt like it was just kind of lacking a bit in the action and certain scenes. But I also did like the storyline, so I'm kind of conflicted on it, because I did like the kind of building relationships, and the attention given to, all of these people dying, and kind of honing in on these are people that died, let's actually give attention to them. I appreciated that, and I think, there's a beauty to discussing that. If there were some horrible virus that killed a ton of people or caused death upon a ton of people, to kind of give attention to those lives that were lost. I think that the line there, though, is that this is a fictional story. So it just felt a little unnecessary, I guess, to give that much attention to, the memento mori, or I think that's what the saying was in the film. It very much honed in on the meaning of life and death, and the appreciation of life and death. And those are beautiful concepts to discuss. It just kind of felt a little bit out of place to me for it being, marketed as this is a zombie movie. You know what I mean? So that's my criticisms. Let's kind of break down what's happening. Not gonna spoil it for you guys because I do think you should go watch it. But I will just give a layout of the characters. And then I'm going to talk about the things that I loved, because I do have a few things that I loved. And some thoughts that I have, questions that I would love to hear if people have answers to, or if people also are curious, or more questions you have. Let's talk about the characters. So we have Spike. He's, I think he's only 12 years old in the film. He has his mother, Isla. I think it's Isla. And then he has his father, Jamie. It's clear that his mother has some condition that's not stated in the beginning because they don't know. There's no doctors on the island that they're staying in. And all of these people, this community, are living on an island that's separated from the mainland. So the virus is still there on the mainland, being quarantined, but there are a group of people on an island that are separated from it. But they go to the mainland on occasion to get resources. So they do have to confront the infected, but they have a lot of defense around the island, and they've been able to maintain safety among their people. So the film kind of starts out with his father, Jamie, is taking Spike out to the mainland for the first time to hunt and to get his first kill of one of the infected. And it's kind of a big deal because they generally wait until he's a little bit older, but Jamie really wants his son to go out and get his kill, so they go out, and it's a lot of it's a lot of Spike learning what the infected really are like, and the reality and dangers of what's happened. And then we also, of course, have more conversations about his mother, because he wants to get his mother help, but there's nobody to go to as far as he knows. Later in the story, they return back. There's a party for Spike, and Spike's dad cheats on his mom with some woman, and it obviously very much upsets Spike, because he does kind of catch them in the act. So Spike, his dad comes home the next morning, and Spike lays into him about it and kind of says, get out, we don't even want you here. And it drives a big wedge between him and his dad. And I believe it was his grandfather or a friend of the family was there staying with Isla while they were at this party, and he tells Spike when Spike returns home that there's a doctor on the mainland that has somehow survived being alone out there amongst the infected. And he's a weird doctor. That's all that Spike really gets told about this. And he tries to talk to his father about it a little bit, and his father's like, who told you that? No, that's stupid. Don't even think about that. Spike doesn't listen, and he essentially sneaks his mother out. And they're off to the mainland. I'm gonna leave it there because I don't want to spoil any more of it, but that's kind of the setup for the story, is Spike trying to get help for his mom whilst going onto a land of infected people, and he's a 12-year-old kid that just had his first kill. Like he's, you know, he's not experienced. So it's a very compelling storyline, I think. I think, you know, as I said though, my judgment for it is just a bit of like a lot of story building and not as much action as I would have liked. But I did like the concept of, you know, there's this doctor surviving amongst the infected, and also the concept of, you know, this is 28 years later, so these infected, the virus has mutated in different ways, and I think that was a very intriguing route for them to go down and kind of show the intricacies of how the mutation has formed and the new abilities that the infected people have gathered. And I do now want to kind of talk about some of that. So these might be like some spoiler questions, but if you've watched it, I'd love to like have conversations about this. My thing that I thought was wild is that the mutated infected people, the mutation allows them to reproduce. I don't think that was a thing that would have been possible for the original strand of the rage virus, because, you know, it just made you want to kill people, like enraged, not have sex and reproduce. But as we see in the film, clearly reproduction is still happening. You know, we got a couple different shots of the lovely Samson, the alpha leader, and his gigantic schlong that everybody loves to talk about online. And you know, I kind of love it because it's like, oh men, you can see what it feels like to, like, you know, have to be compared to with having a gigantic dick on screen for women to talk about. You know, it's kind of like when a girl has her gigantic tits on camera, and then it's like girls feel like they're being compared to all the time based upon media. Yeah, here, men, here's your turn. But that was, you know, I think that tied back to the first film's kind of rawness, because there was nudity as well in the first film, and so I think it was kind of a drawback, and also an interesting thing to see, like, these alphas that have grown from the rage virus, and it clearly seems to be some sort of mutation that is also, again, allowing them to reproduce. The interesting thing with that is that the children born are not infected, and that was a very interesting thing to me, because I'm wondering, are the children immune, or are the children going to end up developing like the rage virus like the activities, I guess, of like enragement, but not having some of the key identifiers like the eyes being red, because we see the baby being born with blue eyes, so it's like, are they born without that and they develop it? Are they immune? Or was this baby that was born, was it a mother that was infected midway through her pregnancy? Are they actually not able to reproduce, and that was just kind of something that I thought of but I'm wrong about? So that's kind of the questions I have, and I'm curious to see, like, with the next one where they go with it, because it has been confirmed that there will be another one, which I'm assuming this next one is going to follow the cult of the character Jimmy that we see in the very beginning, and then the end of the film. I assume it's going to delve into his character a bit, which I did really like. I think the end of this film, this like end fight sequence seemed so out of pocket and like disconnected, I guess, for the rest of the film. But I think that probably was also a choice because it was kind of a cliffhanger for the next movie. They have to do a setup, and I think they were kind of introducing like some of the music and vibe for the next film within that scene. So I am excited to see the next one and kind of see where they go with that. That was my questions. And now to say the things that I really loved about it before we wrap up. It had an amazing sound design. I'm a sound designer myself, so I love seeing horror movies with amazing sound design, and this was one of them. I think their choice of music in this film was amazing. Their choice of just sound effects and Foley it was so good. It really built up the suspense, and I think was creative enough that it didn't feel like a repetition of another film. I loved it. It was so good. I think it was very impressive and for me inspiring, because I'm like, this is a good sound design. Like, they put some time and effort into this, because I think especially in a horror film, sound design is so important because you have to keep the suspense building up, even in moments where there might not be a ton happening visually, but you're hearing a whole lot. Or maybe there's a ton happening visually and you want that to be a moment where there's silence. Like, those are all integral thoughts that you're having as a sound designer, or, you know, as a videographer, the cinematographer, thinking about the balance of sound and the balance of camera work. And I love sound design. It was so good. So good. And I really liked they used, I'm blanking on what it's called, but it's a song that is used for torture, and I think their use of that added so much, like, suspenseful fear. Like, oh, it was so good. Such a creative choice to use that, and I think it was implemented beautifully. And my last note is, like, the cinematography was really good. I really liked the balance between the styles of the first film and the second. It didn't feel too generic Hollywood, but it didn't feel too artsy. I think it had a good blend. And I love artsy films. I'm not saying that as an insult at all. But I know that there are a good number of people that aren't the hugest fan of artsy films. They like the more, you know, generic look and tone, and that's fair. But I liked this film a lot. I think it had a good combination. I just, you know, again, I would not have done the editing that way, but that is me. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this one. I really recommend you go watch it if you haven't. It was very, very well made, and I am so excited to see the next one. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. I will be back with another video on Friday.